Congratulated my ex-boyfriend and his mistress coworker on their pregnancy at work, only for karma to hit them both soon after. I'm a 28-year-old Asian woman, and just last week, my world turned upside down. I'd been with my boyfriend, he's 31 and Hispanic, for 3 years. We both work at the same company, along with his sister. I never imagined I'd be betrayed like this, but nothing could have prepared me for what I discovered. It all started when I was quietly working at my desk on Friday. Suddenly, my lead, who's famously nosy, came over, whispering if I was okay. I was totally confused until she pulled out her phone, leaned in, and asked whether I'd broken up with my boyfriend. Still lost, I watched as she showed me a screenshot of an Instagram post, apparently made by one of my coworkers, the very one he cheated with. I don't even have social media, so the whole thing was new to me. But there it was, a picture of my coworker, kissing my boyfriend for everyone to see. As if that gut punch wasn't enough, just before I confronted him, the same coworker posted a picture announcing she was about 2 months pregnant. My lead texted me the screenshot while I was on the way to my now ex's house, my heart pounding, my brain spinning. I called as I neared his place and asked him to explain himself. Silence. When I got there, he flat out refused to come outside or face me, so what followed was a phone conversation, with me parked outside, trying to piece together the wreckage of our relationship. I sent him the screenshots, without mentioning who sent them. Finally, he cracked. He admitted he'd gotten close with our coworker because his sister kept inviting her over. He confessed, they'd started dating 2 months ago, right before his mom's 50th birthday. Thinking back, it all made sense. That night, his sister had insisted the coworker come, and when I'd asked, told me she was the one who invited her. He'd told his new girlfriend to dress in gold, his favorite color, even though the whole family went with the hot pink party theme. But I was oblivious then, just a loyal girlfriend, left to mingle while he spent the night drinking, talking, and dancing with his sister and the coworker so she wouldn't feel left out. At some point, his cousin invited me to dance. It felt awkward since my boyfriend was glued to our coworker all night. Suddenly, he grabbed me and whisked me aside, pissed I was dancing with his cousin. I told him he was the one acting out of line, but didn't want to make a scene out of respect for his mom. When I left early, feigning sickness, they wasted no time in heading upstairs together. Apparently that's when they conceived their child. The sheer disrespect. He told me all of this over the phone, not even bothering to look me in the eye while destroying our relationship. After a while, his sister came down and told me that he wanted me to go home for the day. Furious, I confronted her for helping him lie to me for months. Her justification? She didn't think I was good enough for her brother because I didn't speak Spanish. She liked the coworker more because she spoke Spanish, so she set them up. Never mind all that I'd done for her and her kids, helping her daughter in speech therapy, babysitting so she could go out, helping their mom with errands. Apparently none of this mattered, since my Spanish wasn't up to her standards. His mom eventually came out, worried about the commotion. I said goodbye, told her flat out her son was a dog and a piece of crap, and that he could do the explaining, because I was done. She cried, begged me to stay, told me whatever her son did I shouldn't carry the burden, but I told her he'd get what he deserved. At work, I forced myself to be professional, even when the shifts overlapped and I saw them walking around together. In a moment of pure pettiness, or poise, depending how you look at it, I congratulated them on their pregnancy right there in front of everyone. Then my ex called me. When I picked up, he asked me where he stood in our relationship so he could make a decision. And oh, could I please try not to make things awkward at work for them? I laughed. There's no place left to stand when there's no relationship. The only decision that mattered was the one he had already made, to sleep with another woman and get her pregnant. It wasn't me making things awkward, what they did was what changed everything. This week, karma arrived with wings. His sister ended up quitting after a blow-up with another supervisor. And just today, Friday, I got news that truly sealed the week. The company fired my ex because of a DUI, his second one. Sometimes the universe has your back after all. Update 1. Since my ex-boyfriend got fired, my phone has been practically exploding. Constant calls and messages, his number popping up over and over until I finally blocked him for my own sanity. Things didn't even calm down at work. Out of nowhere, I got hit with a harassment accusation from my coworker, the same coworker who is now pregnant. My manager finally returned from 2 weeks of PTO, called me in, and wanted the full story. I explained point blank that I've only ever said 2 things to this coworker: congratulations on her pregnancy and a simple hello as coworkers do. That's it, not one word more. When HR got involved, I bluntly challenged them, where's the proof? Who heard me say anything out of line? I told them to ask any associate or manager nearby. I even said, go ahead and ask her directly to explain how on earth I'm harassing her, let's really hear her reasoning. Turns out, people had been gossiping about her pregnancy, and how she got with my ex-boyfriend, who is, of course, the baby's father. She claimed I was the one spreading it around. Laughable, really. The truth? The entire world already knew because she made a dramatic Instagram post, broadcasting her new relationship and pregnancy to everyone, including, conveniently, many of my coworkers. HR confirmed after talking to the team, I hadn't said a single word about her or my ex-boyfriend except that day when everyone was congratulating her. The story spread because of her own actions. HR said they'd talk to her and sort things out, and for now, told me to keep a distance. Fine by me. I'm waiting to see how HR will deal with it. Over the weekend, I steeled myself to go back to their house to collect my things. I got confirmation from his mom that he wouldn't be home and she'd help me pack, just so I could slip in and out quickly. True to her word, she had the garage open and was helping me get my things together. We were almost done when he suddenly pulled up in the driveway. My heart dropped, but I grabbed what I could and quickly told his mom I was leaving. I made for my car, but he intercepted me, insisting that he needed to talk. There was absolutely nothing left to say. His mom tried to pull him aside and tell him to let me go, but he brushed her off and just wouldn't give up. He blocked my path, begging for a conversation. I'd had enough. I told him, sharp and direct, "What is there to talk about? The day I came here and asked you to explain what happened, you couldn't even face me. Not even for a moment. I gave you a chance, and you threw it away. We only spoke on the phone, and not once did you apologize for cheating on me. You sent your sister out to get rid of me. You can't own up to your own actions, and that alone tells me who you are. Now you want to talk because things have finally blown up? No. I don't owe you anything." I shoved past him with my box, put it in my trunk, and hopped into my car. He kept begging me to stay, said he was sorry, that he didn't know what he was thinking, it was a mistake. He said he still loved me and wouldn't be with her if she wasn't pregnant. His mom stepped in, voice cold, "Cheating's not a mistake. You did it because you wanted to. Your love was never real. You made your choice, and now you live with the consequences." I added, "Even if she wasn't pregnant, you still cheated. That's all I need to know, I'm gone." His mom pulled him away and waved me off, as I finally left that house for good. Of course, blocking his number wasn't the end of it. He started calling me from his mom's phone. When I realized it was him on the line, I hung up, and soon after, his mom texted me herself, politely asking me to block her number too. The worst part of this mess? His mom had to witness it all. She was genuinely good to me, treated me like family, and honestly, I feel awful that she became collateral damage in this chaos. Update 2. Monday started with HR closing the loop. They called me in, said their review was done, and that there'd be a formal directive for her to keep her distance and stop involving me in her personal life. They were calm about it, almost too calm, but I could tell by my manager's face that whatever she told them didn't land the way she expected. They asked me if I wanted shifts adjusted. I told them I wasn't the one who created the problem. If anyone needed adjusting, it wasn't me. By lunch, she tried to talk. She hovered at the end of my aisle and started with a fake soft voice about how she didn't mean to make me feel uncomfortable and that people were twisting her words. I said I wasn't interested in a conversation and turned back to my screen. That was apparently the wrong answer. Her voice jumped an octave in volume in 30 seconds, accusing me of staring at her belly and smirking when she walked by. I blink at my keyboard a lot when I'm tired. That's the smirk. A manager walked over mid-performance and told her to clock out for the day and head to HR. She tried to argue and then realized everyone within 5 feet had stopped to listen. She clocked out. I thought that was my quota of drama for the day. I was wrong. When I left for the night, he was leaning against my car like we were in some high school parking lot romance. Hands in pockets, hat low, that I've been thinking look he used to save for when he wanted me to cook after I'd already taken off my makeup. "Can we talk?" he said. "No," I said, and kept walking. He shifted and stood in front of my door. "Please, just 5 minutes. I know I messed up. I've been going to meetings. I'm getting it together. I just need you to hear me." I took out my phone, hit record, and told him calmly that he needed to step away from my car, that he'd been told not to contact me, and that if he kept blocking me, I'd call security. He took off his hat like that made him more sincere and started rapid-fire apologizing. He threw out every cliché I've heard in movies. He missed me, he didn't realize what he had, he was in a dark place. He said he loved me, he said she wasn't even, he stopped. He swallowed. "I'm not even sure it's mine," he blurted, so fast it sounded like one word. That was the first time I looked him in the eye. Not because I cared about his revelation, but because it was so on-brand that my brain needed to log the moment. I repeated myself, move away from my car, and then made eye contact with the security guard who'd started walking over from the lobby. He saw the uniform, put his hat back on like armor, and tried to pivot. "Can you at least write a letter for the judge? About my character? You know me. They'll listen if it's from you." "Security," I said, and the guard finished the walk. They told him he needed to leave the property. He tried one more time, "She's my girlfriend," and I said clearly, for anyone in a 50-foot radius to hear, "No, I'm not." He left when the second guard showed up. He must have texted her immediately after, because an hour later she showed up in the parking lot like a storm cell. Not to talk to me, she beelined for the front desk and insisted to the receptionist that she needed to file a counter report. She stayed there long enough for me to see her gesturing wildly, then HR walked her to a conference room and closed the door. A little while later she was escorted out with a box. No one said fired. The phrase was administrative leave while we review, but a box is a box. That night, his mom called me from her friend's phone. She sounded tired in a way I hadn't heard before, 4 words at a time with long breaths between them. She apologized for calling but said she didn't want me to be surprised if he showed up again, because he wasn't welcome at her house anymore. He'd screamed at her in the kitchen when she brought up the DUI and how he needed to take responsibility, and then he turned around and asked her for money for a paternity test. She told him he had 2 legs and a brain and he could figure it out. He left. She found a pair of my socks behind the dryer and asked if I wanted them. It made both of us laugh, and then she cried. I told her to keep them. House souvenir. Tuesday morning, HR asked me if I wanted to file a trespass notice. I did. I also went to the courthouse on my lunch break and filed for a protective order. I brought my call logs, screenshots of the unknown numbers, and that video from the parking lot. The clerk explained how service worked. By Thursday, I got confirmation he'd been served at his cousin's place. The call stopped. Imagine that. Work is quiet now. Quieter, at least. HR moved her to a different building temporarily, which feels like an apology dressed up as logistics. The air actually moves when I walk through all 5. People look at me and then, mercifully, go back to their spreadsheets. My lead left a post-it on my monitor that just said coffee? With a little smiley face. I went. It was normal. We talked about nothing. It felt like a vacation. Then Wednesday night, my phone buzzed with a blocked voicemail that transcribed itself into nonsense until it got to the part where he said, "Tell them I'm clean. Tell them I'm trying," and then, "I don't even know if I should sign anything." I didn't listen to the whole thing. I forwarded it to my email and into a folder named Receipts. The last curveball came from an unexpected direction. A DM from a former coworker of hers, someone I've never had a full conversation with. She sent me a screen recording of a close friend's story from the pregnant one's Instagram, green circle and all. In it, she was laying on a couch, hand on her stomach, talking about haters at work and people who didn't want to see her happy. Then she laughed and said the doctor had moved her due date. Surprise. She pulled up a sonogram with a date stamp that didn't match the math they'd been posting. Again, not my business. Also again, the irony could choke a person. I didn't respond. I don't need to be the audience for any of their performances. Thursday, HR let me know they'd finalized the separation plan. No overlapping shifts, no shared projects if she returns, all direct communication through management if absolutely necessary. It felt like someone finally shut a window that had been stuck open in a rainstorm. Update 3. The protective order hearing was Thursday morning in a windowless courtroom that smelled like paper and old coffee. He showed up in a suit that still had the store's fold lines. She came too, belly forward, glossy hair, eyes flicking between me and the bench like she was watching a TV show she'd already spoiled for herself on Instagram. My name got called, and I walked up with my folder. The judge asked me to describe what happened. I kept it to dates and facts, calls, the parking lot, the video. When it was his turn, he tried the soft voice I used to fall for and said he was just trying to talk and that I was misunderstanding his intentions. The judge held up a hand and asked if he'd read the temporary order about no contact. He said he had. The judge asked him if he understood what no contact meant. He nodded. The judge looked at the bailiff and then back at the paper. Order granted for 12 months, he said, like he was reading a grocery list. No contact in any form, no third-party contact, stay at least 100 yards away from her home and place of employment, including the parking lot. He stamped it so hard the sound bounced off the walls. In the hallway, she drifted toward me like a balloon with a slow leak. "So you're really doing this?" she said, all breathy righteousness. The bailiff didn't even let me answer. "Ma'am," he said to her, "back to the elevators." She sniffed, spun, and went, the click of her heels echoing until the doors swallowed her. I went back to work and opened my email to a message from HR with a subject line that was basically corporate ambient, update on workplace assignments. They've reassigned her to another location, with a different manager, effective immediately. For operational needs. Sure, I read it twice and then closed my laptop and ate my yogurt like a person on a lunch break and not like someone who had just had the legal system call a timeout on her personal life. At 3, my phone lit up with a number I didn't have saved. The automated voice kicked in before anyone could speak. "You are receiving a call from an inmate at." I hung up and watched the missed call notification sit in the corner of my screen like a fruit fly. 10 minutes later, his mom called from that same number. She sounded like I imagine a wind chime sounds in a storm, there, but tired. She didn't make me guess. He'd been pulled over that morning driving on a suspended license in his cousin's car. They took the car. They took him. She said he'd asked her to put money on his book and to call me because I owed him a conversation. She said she had told him, in front of the deputy, no, she doesn't, and then she'd walked out. I was halfway through alphabetizing a shipment when my phone buzzed again. Unknown number, voicemail transcribed into my notifications. "This is a collect call from," his name, at. I didn't listen to it. I slid it into the folder and kept moving boxes. Friday started so normal it felt suspicious. Coffee, spreadsheets, the little where the label printer makes when it's about to jam. Around noon, my lead leaned on the edge of my desk and said, "You seeing this?" I didn't have to look to know where this lived. Instagram. She tilted her screen toward me anyway. Green circle. Close friends. A sonogram with a caption that said, "They changed the date again, can't keep a queen down," And one of those sparkle gifs drifting across the image like confetti. 15 minutes later, the same former coworker who'd sent me the last screen recording slid into my DMs with a new one, the pregnant one's hand on her stomach, voice soft, saying, "Paternity test drama is so toxic, especially when you know your heart." She paused and looked at the camera for a beat too long. Anyway, God's timing. The date on the sonogram did math that directly contradicted half the speeches I've had to listen to in the last 2 months. By 2, his mom texted me again. 3 words and a picture. It's not his. The photo was a thin strip of paper that looked like a receipt. Non-paternity. She wrote after, "He cried. Then he got mad. Then he asked me if I thought he should sign anyway." I stared at that last sentence until the clock jumped 5 minutes. I typed back, "I'm sorry. For you." She sent a heart and then, "I'm taking a nap." Security met me at the door at the end of my shift like they always do now. It's become a polite dance, nods, small talk, a glance around the lot. There was an empty space where his cousin's car would have fit. The air felt lighter. I was halfway home when a message came in from a number I actually recognized. His sister. I hadn't heard from her since she quit. Her first line was, "I'm not trying to start anything," which is always what people say right before they try to start something. She said she wanted to apologize, that she didn't know it was going to turn into this, that she thought he'd finally grow up. She said she was embarrassed. She said her kids missed me. I could feel the long apology she thought she was writing in her head, the part where I absolve her so she can sleep at night. I kept my reply short. "I hope you're okay. I can't be in your family's orbit anymore." She sent back, "I get it," and then a picture of her daughter with a missing front tooth. I put my phone face down on the passenger seat and drove the rest of the way with the radio off. Saturday, she reappeared in my actual life instead of the green circle. Grocery store, produce section, the overhead mist turning everything shiny. I was putting lemons into a bag when I caught her reflection in the pyramid of oranges. She came up close enough for me to count the clumps of mascara on her lashes. "You don't have to be like this," she said. It landed somewhere between plea and accusation. I picked up one more lemon. "Like what?" She gestured, both hands, "Entire world. Cold. Act like you didn't love him. You used to love him. You can admit it." The mist hissed overhead. I tied the bag. "I love the person I thought he was," I said. "That person didn't come to the party." She blinked, and for a second, something like recognition slid behind her eyes. Then it was gone. "You're not even happy," she said, as if she'd caught me in a lie. "You're just trying to be better than me." A manager rolled by with a rolling ladder and paused like his cart had suddenly developed feelings. I said, "Please don't talk to me," and stepped past her. She muttered something about haters and God seeing hearts. I kept walking. I paid, put my bags in the trunk, and sat in my car for a minute listening to my heartbeat in my ears. Then I drove home and made lemonade so sour it felt like a cleanse. This morning, I got an email from a VP I've never met outside of holiday parties and Zoom squares. Subject line, opportunity. Inside, a clean paragraph about a temporary rotation on a different team with a bump in pay. "You've been recommended." I stared at the period at the end of that sentence until my eyes went dry. I said yes before my brain could invent a reason to say no. In the afternoon, another unknown voicemail transcript arrived. "I'm doing the work," he said to a robot. "Tell them I'm doing the work." The machine inserted a bracketed, laughs, where the recording caught the sound of someone on another phone call in the background. I forwarded it to the folder and named it exactly what it was, noise. I didn't think I'd ever say this about a week that included a court stamp, a jail call, and a produce all confrontation, but the quiet feels real now. Like when someone finally turns off a fan that's been running in the other room for months and you realize you've been shouting over it without noticing. I cleaned my apartment. I answered an email. I watered the plant I almost killed by forgetting it existed. I took a picture of the socks she kept and sent it to his mom with a caption that said, "They look good on your dryer." She sent back a photo of her foot in one. "He'll pop like a teenager." I laughed, out loud, alone in my kitchen, and not because anything bad happened to anyone, but because the air in my lungs came and went without catching on anything. Update 4. Monday, first day on the rotation, new badge clip, new building smell, fresh paint and someone's lunchtime microwave broccoli. My desk is by a window that looks out over a crane that moves steel like it's a choreographed dance. My new manager shook my hand and said my name like it had weight. "We're glad you're here." There was a laptop with my login already working and a mug with the team logo that someone clearly washed and set out. No label printer were. Just the soft click of keyboards and the low hum of actual focus. At 10, HR sent an email that used all the quiet words. Effective immediately, operational alignment. Mutual separation. Her name wasn't in it, but my manager's eyebrows did the smallest move when she walked past my screen. I didn't ask. I answered a question about lead times and then another question about why people don't believe dates until they're printed on a box. At lunch, I took my salad to the courtyard and ate next to a little square of grass that someone had convinced to survive in a concrete planter. My phone buzzed twice. First, a text from his mom. He checked into a program. 30 days. Court said if he completes it, they'll consider it. A beat later, he asked me for your number again. I told him I don't have it anymore. Then she sent a picture of a soup she made and a note that said, "I'm learning to cook for one again." I sent back a heart and a recipe for the sour lemonade. She wrote, "I made it." It made me feel awake. By 3, the building security stopped by my desk with a neutral face and an envelope. "This was dropped for you." We logged it. Inside was a folded piece of paper in neat, guilty handwriting. Not his. It was hers. It started with woman to woman, which is always a prelude to something that isn't. She said she wanted to clear the air and then asked if I could tell HR she didn't mean to destabilize the environment and that pregnancy brain made her say things. Halfway down, there was a sentence that didn't know it was a confession. "I didn't even know who to tell when it wasn't his," she wrote, like it could slip by if she stacked it between apologies and God. I took a picture, sent it to HR with the subject line "Unsolicited Contact, Workplace Drop," and put the paper into the folder named Receipts. Then I washed my hands. Wednesday morning, he called the program from a restricted line and tried to leave a message through their staff. "Participant wants to confirm a character witness for court." The woman on the line had the voice of a school librarian who has seen everything twice. I told her there was a protective order and gave her the case number. She said, "Thank you," and then, "We have a policy for this." The call ended like a soft door closing. By Thursday, the crane outside had started to feel like a metronome for the day. My new team slid me into a meeting, and I answered a question that should have been easy but felt like a tiny test. After, my manager sent a 7-word email, "You're doing fine. Keep going." I saved it anyway. At 5, my old lead texted me a video with no caption. Grainy parking lot footage at my old building, shot through a windshield. Balloons in blues and greens, a cardboard box that said boy in glitter letters. She was there in the middle, one hand on her stomach, yelling at a security guard I've known for 6 years. "I work here," she said. He pointed at the laminated paper in his hand. "Not today, ma'am." A man's voice off camera said, "Girl, not now," and she turned and said, "Don't tell me what to do, Manny," and that name hit my ear like a dropped tool. His cousin. The one whose car got towed. The one who invited me to dance at the birthday. He walked into frame, hat low, tattoo peeking out of a sleeve, and put his hand on the small of her back in a way that looked too practiced to be new. She shoved his hand off and said to the camera, "Everybody's against me," and the balloons bobbed like they were trying to float away from the plot. Security took the box, handed her a piece of paper, and walked her to the curb like it was just weather. That night, his mom called. She didn't wait for me to ask. "It was Manny," she said, like she had been holding the name in her mouth. "I told my sister years ago to get him out of the garage, but nobody listens until it's a fire." She said it fast, like if she didn't, it would ossify into something permanent. Then she sighed and asked me if the lemonade recipe works with limes. I told her yes. She sent me back a picture of a glass with 3 ice cubes and a straw like a little flag. Friday was my first meeting with the VP who offered the rotation. His office is all clean lines and one soft chair. He asked me how I was settling in, and I told him the truth, I like the work. He smiled in that way that says he knows there's a lot under the sentence and he's not going to make me pour it out on the table. On the way out, I passed a bulletin board with 3 flyers for digital conduct and one for resources for navigating personal situations at work. Corporate language is so polite it almost sounds like a lullaby that keeps things from burning down. On my break, my phone buzzed with a new green circle recording from the same former coworker who has become a one-woman media outlet. It was a clip from a backyard with a kiddie pool and a folding table. She was laughing with her mouth but not her eyes. "We're good," she said to whoever was filming. "We're better than ever." The camera panned and lingered for a second too long on Manny's face. He looked like someone who had just realized the camera might be a mirror. Saturday morning, I bought a plant I don't know the name of and a textbook called Spanish for Busy People because the universe has a sense of humor. I opened to page 1 and learned how to say, mucho gusto, even though I don't plan on saying it to anyone I don't choose. I said it out loud to the plant and laughed at myself. It felt like handing myself a fresh pencil. In the afternoon, a certified letter arrived with my name typed straight and even. It was a notice that he'd listed me as a reference on a motion for sentencing modification. The form had a box checked next to supportive community. I took a pen and wrote across the bottom, per the clerk's instruction, protective order in place. I do not consent to be contacted. I do not provide character references. I scanned it, emailed it to the address on the letter, and put the original in receipts. 10 minutes later, an auto-reply pinged back. "Thank you. Your submission has been received." At dusk, my phone flickered with a text from an unknown number. The name popped up mid-typing. His sister. "Manny's blocked me," she wrote. "He said I'm fake. He said I should mind my business." Then, I know what I did. "I'm trying to be better." She sent a picture of a bowl of limes and a bottled water and wrote, "I don't know how to make it, but I'm trying." I sent her the recipe. I told her to add sugar until it tastes like she can stand to sip it. Sunday, I took a walk without my phone and came back to a voicemail transcript that was quiet in the way an empty room is quiet. "This is Officer," a name, from the program. "We just wanted to confirm we received your notice. No further contact will be attempted." I sat on the edge of my couch and looked at my plan and said, "Mucho gusto," again for no one and everyone. Update 5. Tuesday morning, my inbox coughed up a subject line that read like a utility bill, notice of unemployment insurance hearing. Her name was there in black and white, mine under witness, the dial-in number and a list of the issues: misconduct, voluntary quit, harassment claims. HR slid into my chat 5 minutes later with a polite, "We'll prep you at 2?" At 2, we sat in a glass box with a spider plant and a speakerphone. The hearing officer sounded like a school principal who had rehearsed impartiality in a mirror. He read a script about perjury penalties and recording. She called in late. You could hear traffic and what sounded like the slap of a car-turned signal fighting for relevance. "I'm here," she said, breathy, as if she'd run to the phone. The officer asked her to state her case. "They made me leave because I'm pregnant," she said. It was hostile. And you could hear me slide into the sentence like a speed bump. She would stare and smile like she knew something. The officer asked if she had documentation. She said, "It's in my stories," and then, realizing the sentence wasn't evidence, pivoted to people at work. HR said, calmly, that the separation was for documented behavior after warnings. She said she hadn't gotten any. HR read dates. The officer asked for specifics of my alleged harassment. She said, she told everybody my business. HR asked if the Instagram post she made to an audience that rivaled our entire building's payroll count counted as everybody. The line went quiet except for a muffled voice that wasn't hers. A man, close to the mic. "Say you felt unsafe." The officer cleared his throat. "Who is speaking?" He said. "No third parties." There was bashful shuffling. "Nobody," she said. My turn was 15 seconds long. I repeated my script, "Hello, congratulations, that's it," and pointed the officer to the security logs the day she tried to have a performance in my aisle and got escorted to HR. He thanked me like people thank waiters when they set down water in a crowded restaurant and moved on. He said a decision would be mailed in 5 to 10 business days. It arrived in 3. Disqualified for misconduct related to employment. The phrase sat so dry on the page it burned. I scanned it and sent it to the folder named Receipts. On Wednesday, a padded envelope showed up at my apartment leasing office with my name in glitter pen like a joke with bad timing. The manager handed it over with a look that said, "I know you didn't order this." Inside, a square of glossy cardstock with blue confetti printed in the corners. "You're invited. Co-ed baby shower. Come celebrate baby M." It was addressed to me like we were friends whose calendars needed syncing. Tucked behind it was a handwritten note in the same careful guilt script I've started recognizing. "Woman to woman," it began again, like the first letter had gotten a sequel no one asked for. "I know we got off on the wrong foot. If you come, people will see we're good." She'd underlined good twice. There was a P.S. asking if I could tell security to chill. I took a picture and emailed it to HR and my building manager with unsolicited contact, residence. My manager replied with, "Understood," and 3 minutes later the building texted me to let me know they'd added a note to my file and would refuse packages from her name going forward. I set the invite on my counter for 10 seconds like it might catch fire on its own and then dropped it into the trash can. Thursday, the crane outside my new window moved a stack of beam after beam like a metronome while I learned the names of 5 new colleagues in a 10 a.m. stand-up. At noon, the Department of Labor letter was joined on my counter by a new envelope from the court. He'd filed a motion to modify his sentencing again, this time with a packet of letters attached. One from a pastor whose name I didn't recognize, one from a family friend who used the phrase "good kid" 3 times about a man in his 30s, and one unsigned draft that I didn't have to read to know who it was for. His mom called before I opened it. He tried to hand it to me during family session, she said, straight into the truth. I told the counselor about the order. The counselor told him to put the pen down. She exhaled like a curtain deflating. He's going to a halfway house after. They're giving him chores. He said he's excited to mop. I told her I knew a good mop is a complicated thing. We laughed once, both of us tired. In the afternoon, my phone lit up with a green circle that wasn't even koi anymore. Backyard, cheap decorations, a borrowed arch of balloons. She stood in the center in a dress that fought with the wind, chin lifted like a dare. The caption danced with the word showered, and when the camera swung, Manny's face took up the corner of the frame with the expression of someone who realized 10 seconds too late that he was on live. The comments under the replay stood there like a line of tiny fires. A woman with a username I didn't know sent me a DM a half hour later that started with, "I'm not trying to be messy," which is how I braced. She wrote that she'd been with Manny for years and that he's telling people you ruined his cousin's life and now you're coming after him. She attached a screenshot of a text from Manny that sounded exactly like him. Words fast, punctuation optional, the word haters doing heavy lifting. I didn't answer. I forwarded the message and screenshot to the same folder and muted the DM thread. Friday, I learned the Spanish for "I don't want this on purpose." No lo quiero. A phrase to hold in my pocket like a pebble. At 6, after a week that finally felt like work and not a weather event, I swung by the grocery store to pick up limes because they were 3 for $1 and it felt like hitting a slot machine. The cashier had a tattoo of a crane on his wrist that looked like the one outside my window. When I got home, a white Prius was idling at the curb with its hazards on. The driver's window rolled down before I could pretend I didn't see. A woman leaned out, older, hair sprayed into place against the night. You're her? She said, like a riddle. My brain reached for a polite nothing and came up with, do you need directions? She shook her head. I'm her mother, she said, like a punchline that didn't land. She says you're ruining her life. There are so many lives she thinks I'm in charge of lately. I said, I don't talk to your daughter. The sentence hung there, simple, true. Her mouth pinched, then softened. I told her not to put everything on the internet, she said in a lower voice, like we were co-conspirators in good sense. But these girls. She let the plural do the work. She looked at my building and then back at me. I just wanted to see if you look like the kind of person who would do that. Do I? I asked, because sometimes it's important to hand people their own question. She blinked and then looked embarrassed to be there at dusk and hazard lights for no prize. You look like you're tired, she said. You and me both. She put the car in drive, said, I'll tell her to stop sending things, and eased away like a ship that realized it didn't belong in a bathtub. Saturday morning, the state answered the questions no one could resist asking out loud. A letter from the Attorney General's office landed in my mailbox addressed to him and his alleged minor child, care of his mom's house. She sent me a picture of the envelope and the line that mattered. Acknowledgement of paternity rescinded. The rest was codes and statute numbers that tasted like chalk even through the phone. He said he feels stupid, she texted after. I told him that's what learning feels like. At noon, the VP with the soft chair stopped me in the hall and asked if I had a minute. He closed the door, said the rotation could be extended if I wanted it, or made permanent if I did. He didn't say after everything, but it sat there, polite and quiet between us. Yes, I said, like a person choosing the solid ground. He smiled and handed me a new badge with a different color stripe. It clicked into place on my belt loop like it had been waiting for a while. That night, my old lead sent one more video, Lores and Sideways. Manny on a curb, palms up, arguing with a woman whose voice got sharper each sentence. Not the pregnant one. Another one. The words were a soup of where were you? And that's not my problem. And then a sentence I knew too well, everybody's against me. A police cruiser rolled slowly by in the background like it was looking for an address it already knew. Sunday, I watered the plant that still hasn't told me its name and practiced my new sentence out loud to no one. No lo quiero. My phone buzzed with a text from his mom in all caps because that's her way of making sure her words don't get lost. I made the line one. Too sour. I wrote back, add sugar until you can stand it. She sent a picture of a glass with a straw in one of her hand giving a thumbs up, nail chipped, ring catching the light. I stood at my window and watched the crane move steel in clean arcs and tried to imagine it taking away everything heavy I still shouldn't have to carry. The room was quiet enough that I could hear the refrigerator click on and off like a heartbeat in another room. I put the unemployment letter, the shower invite, the Attorney General envelope photo, and the new badge email into receipts. Then I closed the folder, not because it was over, but because I wanted to hear what the rest of my life sounds like without paper rustling.